Yes, welcome once again to this wonderful session of web development. Last time we looked onto how to add lists and how also to create links on the different web pages so that we can navigate through them. Today, let us talk about how to capture data from those people that are using your website, like the user input. So we are going to use the forms to capture user input the same way you use these different forms during your manual registration at MOBS. So you're required to capture some kind of information. Some of you, when you're using MOBSEP, you're required to use the username and password. Where are you filling those things? You're filling them in what we call the forms, and they are capturing what we call the user input using those input fields. So let us go ahead and open our Sublime. Let us go and create a new file. We can use the shortcut file, then we go to new file, Control S to save, and then we call this one contact.html because we want to capture some information from our users. So we save this just for learning purpose, but you can put the forms anywhere that you'd love to capture the inputs. So when you do this, we put our HTML structure by typing HTML, then we tab. When we tab, we have what we call our HTML structure. We say that anything that we love to display on our website or in the web browser must be put between the input, between the body tag, the opening body tag, and then the closing body tag. So in this case, let me type form as an element, an HTML element. So in between this, it is defining the space where we are going to capture input from. But in most cases, these forms have also their own elements. For example, the most commonly used element in the input form, it is called the input element. So I'll type here the word input like this, then I tab. We have different types of input. We can capture what we call a text, we can capture a number, we can capture a radio button, we can capture a button which is like submit, we can capture a checkbox that helps us to take different ranges or none of them. Now, with the type we define, for example, the username, it's a text. So we are going to define that the type is text. What about it is going to capture what we call username. Username, okay? I save this. When I save this, let us try to open in the browser and see what exactly we have achieved. So I'll click on this, open in the browser, then our browser will load. After loading, we are going to have something like this. Are you seeing this? This is an input field where we can type something in this. But for the user cannot know what exactly they're supposed to feed into this field. So we can either attach what we call a label or we attach what we call a placeholder. So let us first look at the placeholder. For the placeholder, we just come here and then type the word placeholder like this. Then what do you want to be displayed into the field to guide the user on filling in? For example, we can say, like the way you look at Facebook, you can just say here username or input or enter username. So let us just put here username. I save. This is a placeholder. The moment we begin typing, it goes away. So let me save this. We go back to the browser. I try to reload. When I reload, it is showing me here that username. But when I try to type something here, for example, my name, Hassan, whatever the placeholder does disappear. Okay? The placeholder does disappear. So the same way, let us try on another input field. For example, we would love to capture someone's gender. If we want to capture someone's gender, still we are going to use input element of the form, but simply because gender, you only select one. They are mutually exclusive, okay? Once you choose one, then the rest deemed to be not important or not valid. For example, when you choose that you're male, you cannot be female, okay? So here, the type will be a radio button. So just put here the word radio. I save this. When I save this, I go back here and I try to reload in the browser. We are having a radio button here. You see this? It's radio button. But it's also not guiding the user. So we must attach something in order for it to display properly. Now what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, instead of putting a placeholder, we cannot display anything inside here using a placeholder. So we can use what we call labels. labels can help us in different ways. One, to display the information that guides the user while inputting data. Then secondly, they are also used by people who are disabled whatever the system will be reading out the labels in case someone points at that given field. Sometimes also it helps users on selecting a particular field, like we are going to see, okay? You click on the label and then that given field is selected. So what I'm going to do, let me come here and then I put a label for this. I will say LBL label, the label tag. So the label tag for this, it will be like male. For example, male. That is someone male. I save, just like that. I save. So when I go back to the browser and I refresh, you find that what radio button, this one, is having male on it. Let us duplicate it and then we have female on it as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to copy this and then I paste it at the bottom, okay? I paste it at the bottom, then I change this from male to female, from male to female. The same thing, you're just doing the same work, okay? So here, I'll put the whatever, the name will be gender. We put a general name for them, it is gender, okay? Similarly here, the general name is gender. The general name is gender. But we need to link the two. We need to link the label so that you know that this label is for gender, this label is for male, or this label is for female, like that. So what we are going to do, here we use an ID to specifically specify that field, what is being captured in that given field. And in this case, we are capturing a gender known as male. So I'll just type here male, okay? Then the same thing happens here. ID, I need an ID to specify this input field. And in this case, this is female. So I'll type here the word female. To link the label and then the input field together, what we do, we use an attribute known as the for attribute within the label element. So in the for attribute, whatever the ID we supply for the given field, it is the same ID we supply for that specific label. So we are just going to use the same ID. In this case, the ID for male is male. So I'll just type there male to link the two together. What about the ID for female? So I'll come in this input, whatever, the label, I type an attribute known as for, and then I pass the value of female, because the ID in this case for this label is female. So I save. Once I save, let us go back to the browser and see the changes that we have made so far. Then we see. So I'll try to reload this page. Once I reload this page, we are having this. We have a user input, which is username. We also have whatever the radio buttons that can help us to choose at least one of the limited options, okay? So we have male, we have female. So when you look at this, once I select male, female is disconnected. Why? They have the same name, the attribute name of gender. So it is the grouping. It helps them to group them together, that once you select one of these, another should be unchecked, okay? So the same way, why did we match the labels? What I'm talking about this, yeah? That we are using a for attribute in the label tag to connect to this male. The same thing for the female. The ID is being passed on to the for of this to connect it together. That instead of clicking on only these buttons, instead of clicking on only these whatever round circles, you can even go ahead and click on the word, and then that what radio button will be selected. For example, I'm going to click on female. Once I click on female, you see that checkbox is checked. Once I click on male, you find that the checkbox, the radio button for the circle for male is also selected. What about checkboxes? The checkboxes can be having a list of elements. You can choose either one or choose multiple of them, okay? It allows you to select a number of items. For example, having a favorite color. For example, having the number of questions that you're doing. So let us use it in form of what? In form of questions, and then we see if at all we can achieve this. So let us go back here. I continue inside our form. Maybe you want to capture the number of questions, for example, 2 of them that someone is doing in a given semester. What I will do, I will still use the input element of the form. Then the type here will be a checkbox, a checkbox. As I said, that checkboxes help us to select multiple elements, okay? So in this case, I'll put here question it 1, and then we attach our label. For example, we put here our label, and this label, for example, we put you have accounting. Yeah, we have accounting. You have accounting. I'll copy this. Let me try to copy this. Copy, and then I paste it here, and I will see. So here we change this to course unit 2. We have the second course unit, and then maybe this one is principles of management, or BCS, like that. Let us use 3 of them. So I'll come here still, and I also change this. I put the third one, course unit 3. We are having a list of course units, okay? Then we put here principles of ICT, or we just put the ICT, like that. Now, we save this. But we have not yet put the ID that is going to help us bind the label together with our input field. But let us try to see what is being displayed in the browser. So we go back to the browser. I try to refresh this. When I refresh this, you find that in this section, we are having accounting, we have BCS, we have ICT. I can select all of them. I select this, I select this, I select this. You get the point? So checkboxes allows us to select multiple things. We can select 0 or multiple. Let me try to refresh. Now look at this. When I refresh and I try to click on the word ICT, it cannot select. I click on BCS, it can't be checked. What happens? We haven't linked them together with the labels. Let us go back and link them together with the labels using our attribute in the input field. For example, here we are going to use the ID attribute, ID, and this ID we are calling it, the one is accounting, so we call it accounting. This one's for accounting. Then in the label here, we use the attribute for, then we pass the same, which is accounting, that we are binding this label with the accounting. Then we go to the course unit 2, which is business, BCS. So an ID here to be used would be BCS. Then for the label for this kind of BCS, let this label be for our BCS, like that. We save that change. Then similarly, the ID for ICT will be ICT. Then the label here, in this case, we are going to come to the label, we bind them together using the for attribute, and then we put here ICT, like that. We go ahead and save. After saving, let us go and try out if at all we click on the labels, can we achieve the selection, okay? Like that. So let us go there and see. We try to refresh this. When I refresh, I try to check, I click on account, it is checked. I click on ICT, it is checked. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we use the input fields. We have very many input fields like the submit, the text area, among others, and the password. We are going to add more on this in our coming session. Thank you very much. Let us meet in the next session. Bye-bye.